Welcome back, everybody. I promised that I would make this video a while ago, and I'm only now doing it, so it's the right time for everything. So today I wanted to talk about OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, I know a lot of us are familiar with this, whether we've got it ourselves or whether we know somebody who's got it, or we've potentially heard about obsessive compulsive disorder, which is classed as a mental health issue. So obsessive compulsive disorder is a disorder where your mind keeps telling you to repetitively do or act out or check on the same thing over and over again. And that voice in the head is so distracting that you can't really ignore it. So again, that's the nature of the dual mind. You have the mind of the ego mind. Again, the ego isn't bad. The ego just likes to distract and analyze and, question things and keep you stuck in conflict a lot of the time. It's the chatterbox mind that we're listening to all day. So we've all got that. And then you've got the other part of the mind, which is still and at peace, but we're not really tuned into that as much as we should be. But no judgments, because I know a lot of us struggle with that day to day. So there's varying levels of OCD. Some people get issues where they might, wash their hands over and over again for fear of germs or things like that. It's just a habit. Some people have to make sure that everything is lined up properly. All the bit tins have to be facing the right way in the cupboard in the kitchen, for example. If they're not, then a bad thing might happen. This is what our mind tells us. And we know really it's not rational, but sometimes it's difficult to ignore, especially if we've done it for a very long time. It's these little rituals. Sometimes we have to check things and count how many times we've checked it. There's varying degrees as well. With some people, it's it's more kind of it's less severe, and then with other people, it's very severe, completely debilitating. So I'm just going to talk about one of the reasons why OCD comes up for us. And now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not saying that, I know the be all and end all, but based on my own experience with OCD, with people who have OCD, with the people that I've worked with as a practitioner with OCD, people that I just know in general who have OCD, and I talk to people about it because, I like to sort of, I kind of find it interesting and like to be able to offer solutions for it. So one of the reasons that obsessive compulsive disorder, mental health disorder comes up is it's the monkey mind, the chatterbox mind, that is trying to distract you from something deeper. So an example of what this could be is a past trauma. So if you're somebody that has OCD in one way or another, check this, check that, check it 4 times, check it 10 times. And then if you go over 10 times, check it 11 times and make sure it's not an even number and line that up. Check this, check your hands, check your arms, check your head, check. When we go back in time, again, I always say this, if there is a past trauma that was particularly bad, a loss, grief, pain, heartbreak, abuse, anything like that. It doesn't have to be major and horrendous. It could be more minor, but if it's still classed as a trauma, it might be affecting you more than you think. So if you've had pain in the past that was so bad and so painful to feel, the mind, the ego mind, comes in and says, we don't want to feel that because it's too much. It's too scary. It doesn't feel good. I feel like if I feel into that pain, I'll never come out of it again. And, no one will catch me if I fall, and I'll just be stuck in that, in that rock bottom awful place if I feel that pain. If I process that pain, it means I've got to dive into it, and I don't want to. So the ego chatterbox mind will say distract. And from the moment that trauma happens, if we don't fully process it, the mind will say, well, I tell you what we'll do, we'll distract you completely from that horrendous trauma and pain that you're holding in your system. So what we'll do is we just pretend it's never happened. And the brain is saying, the ego mind is saying, I will distract you with these things over and over and over again so that you barely get a chance to think about what's going on at a deeper level here. So that you don't think about how you're really feeling. I'll just distract you with these ridiculous things. Now, no judgment, but they are ridiculous. The people that have OCD know, oh my goodness, this is so ridiculous. Why do I need to turn the light switch on 10 times? Why do I need to fluff up the cushions 5 times? You know, why do I need to turn the volume down to a certain level? Why do I need to check my hands? Why do I need to, you know, do all these little rituals? We know sometimes that it seems ridiculous, but we cannot ignore it because it's commanding you and we are a slave to it. And as time goes on, the more we're locked into it. But the good news is we can really do things to get out of that. You know, some people choose to go to the doctor and get tablets, that's fine. You know, I mean, for me, taking tablets and things like that to kind of mute the symptom, not always the answer. That's just my opinion though, so no judgments if that's what you do, because if taking tablets helps you to feel better, then that's your choice and that's fine. But sometimes when we're muting the symptoms of the OCD, where the OCD is the symptom of something deeper. So the OCD is the messenger of something that's going on at a deeper level, energetically or emotionally. So ideally, when we don't really want to be ignoring that symptom, because we're never going to get to a place where we can start thinking about clearing and healing that completely by looking at what the root cause of it is. Now, I'm not saying it's always something to do with a past trauma, but I'm going to use my auntie as an example, okay? She's not with us anymore, old age, you know, nothing to do with OCD, but she spent years of her life suffering with really bad OCD. And she would go into the hospitals a lot, into the psychiatric wards. And to be fair, they were brilliant with her. And she would be in hospital a lot. But the best thing that they could do for her is electric shock treatments to try and reset her brain. Now, my auntie had very bad OCD. Very, very, very bad OCD, where it was just absolutely relentless. I just really felt for her. And it was difficult to be around her. And she knew that. It was difficult because, you know, you felt it. You felt what she was going through. And it was hard, you know, to try and pull her out of it and to try and convince her that she didn't have to keep checking that the toilet was flushed because she put her tissue down there. She didn't have to keep going to check the bin because, yes, you did put the tissue in the bin, you know. Go and check, go and check, go and check, go and check. And we did everything we could to help her. You know, we get phone calls off her saying, shall I open the window? You know, shall I close the window? You know, how many times shall I open and close? It was really bad, you know, really felt for her. 40, 50 years ago, well, probably more than that now. I'm not sure. Say between 40 and 50 years ago. She had two children, right, back in the 60s, 50s, 60s. The child in between, she went full term, and then it was stillborn. The baby was stillborn, right? I don't know if back in the day she knew she was going to have a stillborn baby. I don't know if at that time they could tell that the baby was stillborn. I'm not sure. All I know, and the issue is that she couldn't talk about it much because it was so painful, right? So we'll come back to that. She went full term with the baby, had to give birth to a stillborn baby. And then because the support levels weren't the same back in the 50s or 60s, that baby that had passed away was taken away from her before she could even look at the baby. She, because of, you know, certain tablets or whatever she was on at the time to help with the pain relief, she obviously, fell asleep afterwards. And then when she woke up, Baby was never to be seen again. I think her husband, my uncle, had seen the baby. The baby was never to be seen again by her. They'd taken the baby away. They did what they needed to with the stillborn baby, and it was never spoken about again. And there wasn't the same amount of support levels with things like that. It was like, the baby's stillborn, deal with it, move on. It was that type. Unfortunately, it was that type of thing back then. Support levels are so much more different these days for things like that. Thank goodness. What a traumatic experience to go through. The baby was stillborn. You couldn't see it. You don't want to see it because, you don't want to rake it all up. Let's just move on. Look what that's doing. Look at that level of trauma that happened. That's horrendous. That's the worst thing you can ever imagine, is your baby is born and is passed. Is there any wonder her mind kicked in with distraction forevermore? Is there any wonder, really, if you think about it? Because that level of pain, that level of trauma was so painful, so heart-wrenching and so heartbreaking, and she never really was able to deal with it properly because the levels of support weren't there. I mean, she had a fantastic husband and he would have definitely helped. But what do we all do when we suffer that type of heartbreak? Oh, it's so painful. I just got to get on with my life and just distract and keep myself as busy as I possibly can so I never have to feel into that pain ever again. And that pain is still there. It's never fully processed. It's still stuck in the energy field forever and ever and a day until you realise that maybe you should sit with it, feel it, clear it, integrate it, become, gain the wisdom that you gain from processing big emotions like that, because you do get a lot of wisdom and experience from processing those emotions. Those emotions are there to give you information about what's happened and the emotions are actually giving you what you need to be able to integrate and understand what's happened to you. When we ignore it, we're never processing it. No judgments though. It's hard, it's not easy. No one wants to dive into it, You've got to be really brave to be honest with you. And, I feel that for people. But look how that OCD came in so bad. And she never ever discussed it. And not long before she passed away, she was like sort of mid-late 70s. And in the end, she had heart problems. She passed away of chest issues. She said to us, she said, I think the reason I suffer so much with my mental health, no one had said anything to her, is because I lost Lisa. And that's the first time we ever really heard her say that, And I just think this is one of the things that OCD does to distract us. And we don't want to judge the OCD mental disorder because it thinks it's doing the right thing by distracting you. It thinks you do want distracting. Now, like I said, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but this is one big reason why OCD might kick in. So ideally what we need to be doing is stilling the mind. Now, I know that's not easy, especially if you've got an overactive OCD mind, but you can start somewhere with little steps. There's tons and tons of mind stilling meditations, meditation YouTubes on YouTube. You can start off with 5-minute ones, really come into a tranquil place. But what happens is when people's mind starts quietening down, that's when you start feeling maybe the pain of the past, and then we all go, oh, no, I don't want to go there, I'll just keep myself busy. And I know it's not easy, but have the courage to keep going with it, because if that trauma and that pain does come up, dive into it. Just do it bit by bit. Support yourself. Get people in to help you out with that. Do a little bit of work on it, and then, support yourself, make yourself a cup of tea and say, right, okay, maybe I'll do some more tomorrow or next week. But feeling into that trauma instead of ignoring it is going to start healing that pain. And then as the time goes on, you will likely see that those OCD chatterbox thoughts will really start calming down, because as you heal that old pain, there's nothing to distract from anymore. So start by stilling your mind, going into it, journaling if you need to, asking for help from relative people if you need to, and start clearing out the root of that problem. So I hope that helps you. If there's anything I can help anyone with with my practitioner energy work, I can help people with things like this or anything else. Please feel free to get in touch with me, and I will see you again soon. Bye.